She has that Kim Pine from Scott Pilgrim vibe, where she just as soon talk to your butt, talk to your... Darn it! That was funny, but it's also, come on. Why am I having so much trouble with this take? And different problems. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and I can't say that I was expecting to review the material that I have for you starting today, but you roll with the punches, right? For any of you that missed it, the Silver Skull paid me an interesting little visit and left me quite a lovely parting gift. A yellow tattoo with my zodiac sign, Aquarius. Oh, and sorry about the handheld mic. The Silver Skull always seems to disrupt some piece of electronic equipment whenever he shows up. This time it was my lavalier microphone, so going with the backup. Anyway, when I put the pieces of the Silver Skull's riddle together, I realized what he was forcing me to review. A show from deep in my own past. A show with a quirky little place in the heart of every Power Rangers fan, whether they see it as a campy send-up or a cheesy knockoff. I mentioned it in my top 10 knockoffs and spin-offs video and named it as my number 2 choice, to the shock of many, I'm sure. So gather round, heroes, perhaps with a nice bottle of Sunny D and maybe some Dunkaroos, and join me over the next few months for a trip down one of the cheesier parts of memory lane. Kids, let me tell you about tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills. As you might imagine, there's actually not a lot of information online about the development history of this show. However, you don't really need to dig deep to guess. All you have to do is take a look at the year the show aired, 1994. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was the king of children's television, and any TV producer worth his salt was looking for a show that could get a piece of that pie. However, in researching the history of this show, I actually found an interesting little connection between the history of Power Rangers and the history of tattooed teenage alien fighters. This show was produced by a company called DiC, which made shows you might be familiar with like Captain Planet, the first 3 seasons anyway, and Sonic Underground. In 1987, DiC was deeply in financial debt and decided to sell the foreign rights to their library of content to a little company called Saban Entertainment. Saban Entertainment immediately flipped those rights to a company that DiC's CEO considered to be a bitter rival. They sued Saban, and the company settled out of court 4 years later. Even the settlement predates both this show and Power Rangers. It's just something I found interesting. Later on, DiC was able to reacquire all of their content rights, but they were then later acquired by Cookie Jar Group, a company that was then later acquired itself by DHX Media. And considering that's the name of the company slapped on the DVD that I'm watching, I'm guessing that's the company that currently holds this show's rights. But enough talk about rights and legal courts and histories and all that. We're here to talk about heroes in spandex. Heroes, let's take a look at the first episode of Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills in the beginning. The first episode begins with the theme song. Yes, kids, this was a thing in the 90s, and by the way, why they were called opening credits. The theme song actually used to introduce the show that you were about to watch, not explain what you'd been watching for the last 5 to 10 minutes. I'm just being sarcastic for comedy. I don't actually have a problem with cold opens. I just think it's an interesting change. The theme song itself is great. It's Wasserman-esque, though obviously not that level of quality, a great rock tune, and what I really appreciate about it is that it actually makes the effort in the lyrics to work in the content of the show, telling you about the story that you're about to experience. Speaking of that story, let's get into it, shall we? As a red planet Photoshop motion slides into view, we cut to the inside of a ship. I'm not sure if the planet is supposed to be a ship, or if this is a station instead of a ship. I guess we'll find out. A snake alien brings this evil general a map locating the centralized location of the power portals. The general promises a lavish reward, instructing his main lackey, a giant purple bird creature with teeth coming out of his beak named Lechner, to deposit a large sum of money in the alien's account, and even promising an item from his personal collection that will surely eventually find its way to the temple. However, remember that this was the 90s and this is our not moment. Well, the general puts this as a missed detail that he noticed, but the way he says it indicates that he's being sarcastic and he knew about this all along. You see, the snake alien failed to kill a creature named Nimbar. This amends the reward just slightly. Now, instead of lavish riches, it's a lifetime of slave labor imprisonment. Something weird in the exchange rate, I think. So, as you might have already guessed, since Earth is always the center of the fictionalized universe, Earth is the central location of these power portals. Lechner asks his boss if he plans to just vaporize the planet, but no. He's planning to conquer the planet and then use these power portals to conquer the rest of the galaxy. Interestingly, he gets right to the monster of the day work on this, summoning Ninjabot, a samurai robot. And I'm not just pointing that out for comedic effect, he literally says, Ninjabot, a samurai robot, and sends him to Earth. Ninjabot teleports down to Earth and gets right to work, mainly because there's nobody around to stop him. He zaps some power lines with beams that come from his sword, and then slices a big rock face before zapping a big power plant facility? I'm not sure. It's a big facility with a lot of orb-shaped buildings. Beverly Hills. That's where I want to be. Living in Beverly Hills. We get an interesting introduction to a single character, Swinton. As you might imagine by the name, Swinton is rather posh and is also the Billy of the situation. Swinton is having a chat with his father at a local coffee shop, his father being concerned that his teacher called and said he refused an assignment. Swinton clarifies that he didn't refuse to do the assignment, he refused to do it with a group. His father gives him a little speech about needing to make friends that very effortlessly works in that people have at least started seeing things about Ninjabot. He says that working alone can make you go crazy, just like one of his reporters who turned in these obviously faked pictures of Ninjabot that were taken at eye level. Okay, of course I understand they're production stills that they just printed off, but I mean still, what, was he in a helicopter? Wait a minute, that actually kind of makes sense. Moving on. It also effortlessly works in the names of the other three characters that you will probably want to remember. Gordon, Laurie, and Drew, fellow students along with Swinton. But in a very refreshing change from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers formula, Swinton immediately states that he can't stand any of them for various reasons. We might actually be in for some juicy character drama, folks. At a house, presumably somewhere nearby, we meet those other three students who are having a group meeting for the project. Gordon seems very full of himself and bad at choosing his words. Laurie just seems kind of like a cheerleader, but Drew drew my attention. That's funny. Right away. She has that Kim Pine from Scott Pilgrim situation going on, where she just as soon kick your butt as talk to you. Gordon shows up late, having decided to just do the project himself anyway. Gordon says that he should present the project since he has greater charisma, and points at some stuff to ask what it does. Swinton says not to touch the device, the two of them flail around, things get knocked all over, some soda gets spilled, the device gets activated, and after all the hijinks, a portal opens nearby. Laurie asks Swinton what the portal is, although actually she asks him if it's some kind of laser, which doesn't even begin to make sense. It's a big floating circle, though I guess laser was a buzzword in the 90s. He says that he's not responsible for this. The device was a secondhand smoke generator, something that would be very useful in Beverly Hills. Drew is intrigued by the portal, touching it, and then diving right into it. Swinton feels a sense of responsibility to someone, Drew or science or whatever, and dives in as well. Gordon tries to beg out of all this, but Laurie says the two may need their help wherever they end up, and she also dives in. Gordon reluctantly dives in as well, saying he better get extra credit for this, which is one of the lines that did make me laugh. The portal is apparently a little time displaced, since despite the fact that Drew left almost a full minute before Gordon did, the four of them arrive at basically the same time. They arrive in some kind of smoky cave command center type establishment, and find a talking blob. Seriously, here's one of the big changes from Power Rangers. Power Rangers, you had Zordon, a giant talking head, something human looking, something recognizable. This guy, big talking pile of goo. The talking goo is Nimbar, who you might remember the evil general was trying to have killed. And with a name like Nimbar, I guess they were going for sort of a cloud-shaped thing. Anyway, Nimbar declares that he is protector of the power portals and counselor to the galactic Sentinels. Drew says that's quite a mouthful, if Nimbar even has a mouth. Laurie calls her on the remark, but Nimbar says no, her attitude is exactly why he chose her. Yes, the device accident doesn't even actually seem to have had anything to do with this. Nimbar just saw that a good team had gathered together and activated a portal. Then he explains the situation. It turns out that evil general dude is actually evil emperor dude. Emperor Gorganus of the planet Molecula. That is such a cheesy sci-fi B-movie name. I am loving all of this cheese. Gorganus sent his mercenaries to destroy Nimbar's world, and we see an example of this with footage on the screen of him sending a creature similar to Ninjabot. But there's two interesting things here. One, the shot is flipped from what we saw the first time. We'll see if the side that he goes to makes any kind of a difference or if this is just mirror flipped footage. Two, this is not Ninjabot. It's a different creature, which means this video footage is using footage that they had filmed but not produced yet, which I just found kind of a nice touch. Nimbar explains about the power portals, which we're hearing for a second time, but it is necessary for the characters to hear this exposition, I suppose. And Swinton suggests that they go back and get the army? It takes a parody of Power Rangers to get characters that use actual logic? However, of course, Nimbar tells them that the army doesn't have what it takes to deal with this particular situation. So Gordon says, why don't you just summon these galactic sentinels that you said you're the counselor of? Nimbar says that he has summoned them. They are his galactic sentinels. When they point out that, no, they're really not, he says, of course they are. They bear the tattoos. When they point out that they don't have a single tattoo, a bit of an oddity for anybody living in Beverly Hills, though I guess they are high schoolers, he says, oops, in whatever his language actually is, and then tells them to approach. Oh dear, Zordon in his tube, this moment is squicky. I didn't remember this scene 100% clearly. I remembered that it was kind of gross, but I thought it was just from the side goo, and thought that what he used to put the tattoos on them was just some kind of shapeless tendril. No, somehow this creature sticks a hand with a finger with a long pointy fingernail on it out of a shapeless blob out and swipes across each of their arms, leaving goo, but also a yellow tattoo that includes a symbol for a constellation mark. You know, kind of like the one I've got on my hand that started us down this little journey. The teens worry what their families are going to think of them having tattoos, but Nimbar says not to worry. The tattoos only appear when he needs them. They're sort of more like implanting flashing beepers. Oh, they just reminded me of that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation with Tasha Yar's sister, where they had the implanted proximity detectors. Anyway, moving on. Drew has been kind of quietly, comedically piecing together the name of the show, at first calling them Teenage Alien Fighters, and now they're Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters. I mean, they're already from Beverly Hills, why not just bring it home, Drew? Nimbar shows them their opponent, Ninjabot. They're all freaked out, of course, although I don't think any of them mention the fact that he's a giant, just the fact that they're not actually fighters. Nimbar says that he chose a team that could work well together, and they take the chance to point out that they're not even friends, let alone a team of warriors. The solution is this season's Morpher, which unfortunately you can't buy in a store. Number one, because I don't think this show even had toys, but number two, because it's kind of stuck to the floor. This team has to travel to their base to morph using the Transactional Time-Space Regenerator Discs, or Transo Discs for short. By the by, they do a really nice establishing shot of these from the ceiling, panning up, and though it's a simple shot, I think it's actually really nice. Gordon asks Nimbar if he could just possibly pick somebody else, and he says no, but his reasoning is dumb. He says that he chose the four for their specific personalities, which will allow them to become the Sentinel that they most closely resemble. Overconfident, tough girl, valley girl, nerd. There are more than 4 of those at their high school, let alone on the entire planet. Anyway, Gordon will become Taurus, the bull, strong and rules conscious, because bulls are incredibly rules conscious, especially when inside china shops. Swinton becomes Apollo, innovative and bright, a maker of new rules for Taurus to then follow. Drew has always been independent, so she becomes Centaur, a breaker of rules. Again, I think that would be a more apt description for Taurus, but I guess Centaur is female. Laurie is Scorpio, the one who can bring the team together, because scorpions can bring everyone together by stinging everyone and making everyone dead. You might have noticed a little running theme there with the whole rules thing. Gordon follows the rules, Swinton makes new rules, Drew breaks the rules. They try to stretch that over to Laurie, but stretch is definitely the word, as Nimbar tells her that he trusts that she will know the right rule to follow. Okay. Nimbar then hints to the plot a little bit, saying that individually they will all be strong, but when they join forces, they can summon a mighty warrior, and that's enough about that for now. Get on the discs. Nimbar tells them that they have to call out the names of their galactic sentinels, and Swinton quickly figures out that this is a sound key that activates the Transo discs. They do so and become the Galactic Sentinels, which in the Top 10 Knockoffs video I called a combination of Ultraman and Battle Fever J. But here we just get the Battle Fever J as they actually stay transformed in... what do we call this place? Nimbar's Cave. Their suits are tight spandex bodysuits, and each of them actually has an interesting little quirk. Laurie, Scorpio, wears a mint green suit that's basically a collared sports bra and then pants. Gordon, Taurus, is wearing a black bodysuit that is a one-piece sleeveless thing down to shorts. Drew, Centaur, has the most normal of the suits, a sleeveless one-piece suit that's purple straight down to the pants. But Swinton. Oh ho ho, Mr. Apollo. His suit is single-sleeved. His right arm is sleeved, his left arm is sleeveless. I did not remember this, and it looks absolutely ridiculous. Each of the suits features a colored face mask and a silver mouthplate, which means the dialogue is done via voiceover. This is primarily because all of the actors are replaced with bodybuilding doubles, meaning that the muscles are on display. I actually like this for 2 reasons. One, it's a nice change from the sleeker look of Power Rangers, and 2, it kind of more directly demonstrates the additional power the transformation sequence gives them. Besides, the bodybuilders are actually pretty believable stand-ins for the actors. The Sentinels are teleported to Ninjabot, and doing so makes them grow. Minor spoilers, from this point on, the Sentinels will usually teleport, transform, and grow all at the same time. They confront the monster, the monster bot anyway, as a full version of the theme song plays. They all strike a pose as they avoid blasts and then start fighting. It's very simple gymnastics and fight choreography that's clearly on a set with a painted sky, but it's fun. They summon their weapons. Apollo, a sort of double single-hand blade, double axe thing, don't know what it is. Taurus, a crystal staff. Centaur, a big old battle axe. And Scorpio, I have even less of an idea than Apollo. Any help? Anyone? Wikipedia says this thing is a slim bladed sword, but no, this thing's got to have a name with its unique shape. They all blast the monster with their weapons, and doing so at the same time is enough to knock the monster down. You can't exactly make a monster grow when it's already a giant, so Gorganus increases Ninjabot's power, reviving him. He blasts the Sentinels with his sword because you might have noticed that the show has a thing about firing beams out of weapons that do not normally fire beams, and their weapons disappear. Scorpio, out of absolutely nowhere, says that they should form Nitron. I guess that Nimbar hinted at the fact that they would be able to do that and that they would learn about their powers as they used them, but a little more in advance on this would have been nice. I thought Nimbar was hinting an episode or two down the road, not like 5 minutes down the road. They clasp arms in a square, calling out their galactic sentinel names in reverse order of their transformation, and then for Nitron. Their 4 symbols appear on the screen and then transform into the parts of Nitron. Centaur, the left leg, Scorpio, the right leg, Apollo, the entire upper body, and Taurus, the head, with a shield appearing as well. It's a big, shiny knight, hence the name, and is their version of a Megazord. The fight now goes one-on-one, with Nimbar telling them to use Mega Caliber, the most powerful sword in the universe. And they take their dear sweet time on doing that, even getting their shield kicked away before finally shoving Ninjabot down and using the legendary sword to blast the monster. This is going to be this season's version of using a gun for a sword finisher, huh? Using a sword as a gun finisher. Ninjabot dissolves and the Sentinels win. The Sentinels are returned to Nimbar's cave, excited about their victory. Laurie can't wait to tell her family about this, but no, secret identities. Gorganus could go after their families. Gordon thought that this was the fight. Gordon, there are 39 more episodes after this, dude. Get comfortable. Oh, and they also slip in that Nitron's power is finite, so they should only use that as a last resort. Like Nimbar said before, their tattoos will flash when they're needed and a portal will open somewhere nearby them, so they head home to get back to their lives for now. Quick villain wrap up with a surprisingly level-headed villain, especially for the 90s. Gorganus seems to have gathered the scraps of Ninjabot, and while Lechner says it just seems to be junk, Gorganus says he can rework it and use it in other ways, and his conquest of Earth is only a matter of time. We head back to the coffee shop, the Café Maison, which will kind of be the hangout for this year. The 4 are talking with each other, and we get another... Okay, so you can either see this as fixing something that MMPR didn't really handle well, or taking a shot at MMPR, your choice. Laurie asks if the 4 of them should start talking to each other and being friends at school, and they say no. You see, the 4 of them are from very different circles, and their friends could start to ask uncomfortable questions if the 4 suddenly start hanging out together. Imagine that! Anyway, Swinton's dad had offered to take the 4 to dinner. Oh, and his source confirmed that the photos of Ninjabot were fake. Dibs on his source actually being Nimbar. But when he steps away for a page, their tattoos light up. When he comes back, they all beg out, and he gets paged again, so he says he has to go. Don't worry, though, this is just a comedic ending, a chance for these 4 heroes with secret identities to say their team names at full volume in the middle of a coffee shop, because this episode is over. I realize that only 2 of the Galactic Sentinels have constellations that are associated with the Zodiac, but this still sort of fits. So heroes, let's read the signs. Episode 1, In the Beginning. Pros, breezy plot, surprisingly strong characterization, and that delicious cheese. Cons, sort of over-focuses on Swinton, Nitron comes out of nowhere, and almost moves too fast. I wasn't prepared to hate this, but I was prepared to critique it. However, I was pleasantly surprised. In the beginning gets 3.5 signs out of 5. This episode moves along at a really good clip. The only scene that felt like it might have been dragging a little bit is that opening scene with Emperor Gorganus, but not even really then. I think that was as long as it was necessary for it to be. It establishes the dread of what our soon-to-be heroes will be fighting. Other than that, the scenes are very in and out, just doing what they need to. Even the Sentinels getting their powers feels kind of breezy, flows pretty well, and uses some nice camera changes to help keep things fresh. This pro is sort of tied to one of the cons, but I think all of the characters are characterized quite well. We get a great read, especially on who each of the Sentinels are. It's kind of basic information, like I said earlier, overconfident, valley girl, tough girl, nerd, but what I think I like so much is how well it carries through the episode and informs each of the characters' actions and interactions. For example, Swinton is a nerd and reacts to basically everything in a nerdy fashion. Kind of what I'm talking about. It applies to our mentor and main villain too. Gorganus is seen to be very calm and level-headed, but also devious. And Nimbar seems almost grandfatherly, slightly forgetful, very sweet, but encouraging and full of information. Just really surprisingly good characterization. And just that delicious, delicious cheese. This is a pro that I was expecting. The costumes, the sets, though props to Nimbar's cave. I actually really do like that set. Just all of it. The show has a very sitcom-esque, filmed in front of a live studio audience vibe to it, and it is steeped in the 1990s. But the best and most fun parts of that decade. The one thing that wasn't really cheesy to me is one thing I was expecting to be cheesy. The main villain, Gorganus. When we got that scene in the coffee shop with Swinton and his dad, I was actually expecting to get one-on-one scenes with each of the Sentinels before the team came together. But nope. Very next scene, the team's all together for the rest of the episode. I am okay with focus episodes, but the first episode isn't usually a good time for it. I understand that Swinton's attitude towards the others kind of represents all of them being reluctant to come together as a team, but yeah, I still think that scene could have waited for a later episode. I maintain that Nitron came out of freaking nowhere. Okay, almost nowhere. As I said, Nimbar hints at this ability in a way that screams this is going to come up in a later episode, but then their weapons get zapped and they not only know how to form this mighty warrior, they know what it's called. As a Power Rangers fan, I get the idea that the powers teach you stuff. It's a good writing trope for this kind of story. But Zordon had told the Rangers about the Megazord and what it was called beforehand. For the audience, I think this was just a little bit of whiplash. And that breeziness of the plot that I praised actually gets a little too breezy at times. The fight scene was a little too quick for their first fight, and the two wrap-ups at the end are both on the quick side. That's TV editing, gotta allow for the commercials, but still, I wish more producers of these types of shows, even today, would be brave enough to make their first episode a two-part story. They ended up getting 40 episodes in this show's run. I don't think it was a big deal, especially during the height of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers craze, to get a two-part story in for your first episodes. But again, I was very pleasantly surprised. This was a pretty strong start for this show, and portends why it ended up getting a 40-episode run, with some episodes airing on NBC, with most of them airing on the USA Network. As a ripoff of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, this is really rather strong, and I'm actually looking forward to reviewing more. Like the second episode of Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills, The Note. Dude, so Drew writes a note to make Gordon think Laurie likes him to prove he just follows rules. Meanwhile, Emperor Gorganus sends Naragula to Earth. Well, alright heroes, that's going to do it for the first Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. Thank you heroes so much as always for watching. This is going to be a long, strange journey, and I'm looking forward to taking that journey with all of you fantastic heroes. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Do you remember it from back in the day, or are you going to pull it up on the DVD and watch it again? You know, whatever the case, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you smack that thumbs up button to let me know that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all of my videos, and ring that bell. Get your subscription set up so you can be notified whenever I post brand new videos, like more of these Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode reviews. And if you'd like to financially support my channel, there are two ways you can do so. Head over to ko-fi.com/OrangeRangerVideos. You can get me a coffee set at $3. I'd greatly appreciate that. Or head over to digitaltipjar.com/OrangeRangerVid. There you can donate any amount you'd like, toss any money in that little tip jar. I'd be grateful for anything I find at either of those sources. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. Deke was late. Later, Deke was able to reacquire all of their content rights, and were then later on. The first episode begins with, she has that Kim Pine from Scott Pilgrim vibe. Pilgrim. But Kim drew my attention right away. Gosh darn it. Gordon says that Gordon reluctant. It's not even in the script. Swinton feels her sense. The portal is apparently a little time displaced since, I don't know. When he points out that they don't have any tattoos, he being Gordon, not Nimbar, I should clarify. They're more like... He says that he chose the... chose to make me not talk good. He says that he chose the... Drew breaks the rules over to Laurie, but... Nimbar called... His suit is one-armed. Because of the sleek look of the Power Rangers, and here we get bulkier, more muscled heroes. All of the suits feature a colored face. We head back over to the coffee shop, the Cafe Maison, which will serve as kind of the hangout for this show. The four are to just all of it. And just that delicious cheese. That's part of the costumes, the sets, though I really like Nimbar's set. When we got that opening scene with the humans, humans. Meanwhile, Emperor Gorganus sends Neurogula to Earth. Neuragula. Meanwhile, Emperor Gorganus sends Neuragula to Earth. I don't know if I can do that.